In the UK, the slaughter of animals is regulated by the Welfare of Animals at the Time of Killing Regulations of 2015, which are enforced by the Food Standards Agency. For large mammals like cattle, they state that the animals, quote, must be effectively stunned before slaughter, unquote. This is done using a powerful bolt gun, which the regulations state must cause immediate unconsciousness and insensibility. Interestingly, lethal injection is not used to kill animals in UK abattoirs because it's considered contrary to animal welfare science. This is because it can take several minutes to stop heart and brain function. Injections often cause distress or convulsions before death, and they require very precise dosages, and they're unpredictable in their effects. Now, we've all heard the lazy cliche in the assisted suicide debate when someone says they watched a relative suffer and they wouldn't put an animal through the same suffering. Maybe they don't realise that what we're proposing in England and Wales and Scotland right now is putting people down in a way we're not allowed to do with animals. I'm Peter Kearney, and this is Viewpoint. So if large mammals in the UK must be immediately and effectively stunned as the only humane way to kill them, why is it that we seem to be ready to allow another type of large mammal, a human being, to be put down by methods which are banned for use with animals? All of the coverage we've seen and heard always sounds so gentle and positive, doesn't it? Putting someone to sleep, giving them a death with dignity, taking away their pain. So, will our assisted suicide laws, if we pass them, remove pain and provide dignity? Well, if the best research available is to be believed, they'll do quite the opposite. There'll be a lot of pain and very little dignity. In the words of Dr. Joel Zivot, a doctor and expert witness against the use of lethal injection for execution in the United States of America, quote, I am quite certain that assisted suicide is not painless or peaceful or dignified. In fact, in the majority of cases, it is a very painful death, unquote. So why are we being sold the lie that an assisted suicide brought about by a lethal concoction of drugs will be a quick and a painless death? Quite simply, many in the medical profession, the media, and among our politicians are either lying about the reality of what they're proposing or are too stupid to discover the truth. Supporters of assisted dying like to present it as a serene, painless drift into sleep. Yet, for both euthanasia and executions on death row, the truth is far more disturbing. Paralytic and barbiturate drugs can silence the body without stopping the suffering. A patient may be unable to move a muscle or utter a sound, but the fact that they are silenced doesn't mean they're at peace. Dr. Zivot's research in the USA 10 years ago gave some shocking insights. In 2014, while witnessing the lethal injection of a death row inmate in the US state of Georgia, he noted that his fingers were taped to the stretcher. As his limbs were already bound, he asked, why tape his fingers? Only later did he discover that a previous inmate had clenched his fists repeatedly during his own lengthy, agonizing 24-minute-long death. Was it pain? Was it fear? Was it resistance? It was hard to know, but prison staff had prevented subsequent inmates from making even that small gesture. In 2017, after gaining access to autopsies of executed inmates, Dr. Zivot's theories were confirmed. The Georgia inmates' lungs were twice the normal weight, and they were filled with fluid. He had suffered pulmonary edema, effectively drowning in his own secretions. yet he showed no outward signs. Under US federal law, executions may be painful as long as they aren't cruel. The Supreme Court previously sought instantaneous death. Instead, what it seems to get now is a hidden form of suffocation. Far from the instantaneous death sought by the Supreme Court, drowning in this manner turns out to be both prolonged and painful. The same barbiturate as used on death row, pentobarbital, has been used in 4 out of 5 assisted suicides in the US state of Oregon, which is the model for our assisted dying bills. If postmortems were routinely performed, we would likely find the same pulmonary edema in all these cases. The patients, expecting a slow and a painless drift into sleep, are choking and drowning. And unlike executions, assisted suicide deaths take place without anaesthetic. The pain may be unseen, but that doesn't make it unreal. And families know this. Linda Van Zandt, who assisted her aunt's suicide in California, described crushing and mixing 100 pills into a drink her aunt could barely swallow, forcing her to consume the vile mixture in under 5 minutes to ensure success. What torment her aunt went through at the end, we'll never know, but it's hard to describe what happened as death with dignity. Now, advocates of assisted dying owe the public honesty. Behind the rhetoric of dignity lies a grim biological reality. Many of these deaths look peaceful only because the person being put to death can't move or speak. And people deserve to know that the path they are being offered isn't sleeping, it's drowning. Separately, a recent editorial in the British Medical Journal highlighted a troubling regulatory discrepancy. The drugs used for veterinary euthanasia operate under far stricter licensing and oversight than those proposed for human-assisted suicide. The authors of the article argue that in the UK, the licensing system for medicines demands rigorous safety, efficacy, and quality standards for pets and animals. But in human-assisted dying, proposals, the same safeguards are completely absent. This double standard raises serious ethical alarm. When the substances intended to end human life are afforded less scrutiny than those used to kill animals, the message is pretty clear. Human life at its ending stages is being treated as less valuable and less protected than animal life. The implications are profound. Legislation, such as the proposed Scottish Assisted Dying Bill, completely lacks transparency about which drugs will be used and how they'll be regulated. Interestingly, Dr. Zivit met and explained his findings to many inmates on death row. Based on this pulmonary edema information, 3 inmates on Tennessee's death row considered their options. Having heard the consequences of the lethal injection process, all 3 chose to die instead by the electric chair. Not something that any of our politicians are offering, though. Thanks to UK energy policy, our electricity prices are so high the NHS probably couldn't afford the electricity bills. Since even death row inmates, when presented with medical evidence of pulmonary edema, have chosen the electric chair over lethal injection, shouldn't that alone give us reason to pause? Let's ditch the "we wouldn't treat an animal like that" rhetoric. When we're talking about someone in pain, the truth is, what some of our politicians are planning to do is treat humans who want to be put to death far worse than they'd ever treat an animal.